Related to this, when we look at people, we often are really seeing only their reputation, the myth that surrounds them, the position they occupy, and not the individual. We come to believe that a person who has success nature, must by nature be generous, intelligent, and good, and that they deserve everything they have gotten. But successful people come in all shapes. Some are good at using other to get where they have gotten. Some are good at using other to get where they have gotten, masking their own incompetence. Some are completely manipulative. Successful people have just as many character flaws as flaws as anyone else. Also, we tend to believe that someone who adheres to a particular religion or political belief system or moral code must have the character to go with this. But people bring the character they have to the position they occupy or to the religion they practice. A person can be progressive, liberal, or a loving Christian and still be an intolerant tyrant at heart. The first step, then, in studying character is to be aware of their illusion and facade and to train yourself to look through them. We must scrutinize everybody for sign of their character, no matter the appearance they present or the position they occupy. With these firmly in mind, we can then work on general key component to the skills. Recognizing certain signs that people emit in certain situations and then clearly reveal their character, understanding some general categories that people fit into strong versus weak character, for instance, and finally categorize that people fit into strong versus weak character for instance, and finally be aware of certain type of character that often are the most toxic and should be avoided if possible. Character sign. The most significant indicator of people's character comes through their actions over time. Despite what people say about the lessons they have learned, see Howard Hughes and how they have changed over the years. You will be inevitably notice the same action and decision repeating in the course of their life. In these reasons, they reveal their character. You must take notice of any salient form of. You must take notice of any salient form of behavior disappearing when there is too much stress, not completing an important piece of work, turning suddenly belligerent when challenged, or conversely suddenly rising to the occasion when given responsibility. With this fixed in your mind, you do some research into their past. You look at other actions you have observed that fit into this pattern. Now, in retrospect, you pay close attention to what they do in the present. You see their action not as isolated incidents but as parts of a compulsive pattern. If you ignore the pattern, it is your fault. You must always keep in mind the primary corollary, corollary of this law. People never do something just once. They might try to excuse themselves to say they lost their head in the moment, but you can be sure they will repeat whatever foolishness they did on another occasion, compelled by their character and habits. In fact they will often repeat actions when it is completely against their self-interest, revealing the compulsive nature of their weakness. Cassius Severus was an infamous lawyer orator who flourished in the time of the Roman Emperor Augustus. He first gained attention with these fiery speeches that attacked high-rank Romans for their extravagant lifestyle. He gained a following. His style was bombastic but full of humor that pleased the public. His style was bombastic but full of humor that pleased the public. Encouraged by the attention he received, he began to insult other officials, always raising the tone of his attack. The authorities warned him to stop. The novelty were off and the crowds grew thinner. But this only made Severus strike harder. Finally, the authorities had enough. In 87, they ordered his books to be burned and him to be banished to the island of Crete, to the dismay of the Roman authorities. On Crete, he simply continued his obnoxious campaign, sending copies to Rome only of his latest diatribes, मतलब verbal attack, diatribes, मतलब verbal attack. That treats me a verbal attack. That tribes. They warned him yet again. He not only ignored this, but he began to harangue, aggressive speak, and insult local Cretan official who wanted him put to death. In 1824, the Senate wisely banished him to the unpopulated rock of Serifos in the middle of the Aegean Sea. There he would spend the last 8 years of his life, and we can imagine him still concocting more insulting speeches that no one would hear. Concocting more insulting speeches that no one would hear. It is hard for us to believe that people cannot control tendencies that are so self-destructive, and we want to give them the benefit of the doubt as the Romans did. But we must remember the wise word in the Bible, like a dog that returns to his vomit is a fool that repeats his folly. You can see eloquent sign of people's character in how they handle everyday affairs. If they are late in finishing simple assignment, they will be late with larger project. If they become irritated by little inconveniences, they will tend to crumble under larger ones. If they are forgetful on small matters and inattentive to detail, they will be so on more important one. Look at how they treat employees in everyday settings and notice if there are discrepancies between the persona they present and their attitude toward and underlines. In 1969, Jeb Magruder came to St. Clement for a job interview in the Nixon administration. The man giving the interview was Bob Heldman, chief of staff. Heldman was very earnest, completely devoted to the Nixon's cause, and impressed Magruder with his honesty, sharpness, and intelligence. But as they left the interview to get in a golf cart for a tour of St. Clement, Heldman suddenly became fanatic. There was no carts available. He railed at those in charge of the cart, and his manner was insulting and harsh. He was almost hysterical. Magruder should have seen this incident as a sign that Heldman was not what he appeared, that he had control issues and a vicious streak, but charmed by the aura of power at St. Clement. And wanting the job, he chose to ignore this. Much to his later dismay, in everyday life, people can often do well at disguising their character's flaw, but in times of stress or crisis, these flaws can suddenly become very apparent. People under stress lose their normal self control. They reveal their insecurities about their reputation, their fear of failure, and lack of inner resilience. On the other hand, some people rises to the occasion and reveal strength under fire. There is no way to tell until the heat is on. There is no way to tell until the heat is on. But you must pay extra attention to such moment. Similarly, there is no way to tell until the heat is on. But you must pay extra attention to such moments. Similarly, how people handle power and responsibility will tell you a lot about them. As Lincoln said, if you want to test a man's character, give him power. On the way to gaining power, people will tend to pay the courtier to seem differently, to follow the party line, to do what it takes to make it to the top. Once at the top, they are fewer restrained, the limitation, and they will often reveal something about themselves you had not noticed before. Some people stay true to the values they had before attaining a high position. They remain respectful and empathetic. On the other hand, far more people suddenly feel entitled to treat others differently now that they have the power. This is what happened to Lyndon Johnson once he attained a position of ultimate security in the Senate. As Senate Majority Leader, tired of the year he had to spend playing the perfect courtier, he now realized the power he had to upset or humiliate those who had crossed him in the past. Now he would go up to such a senator and make a point of talking only to his assistant, or he would get up and leave the floor when a senator he did not like was giving in. Given important speech, making other senator follow him. In general, there are always signs of this character trait in the past. If you look closely enough, Johnson had revealed such nasty sign in the earliest part of his political career. But more important, you need to take notice of what people reveal once they are in power. So often we think that power has changed people, when in fact it simply reveals more of who they are. People's choices, spouse or partners say a lot about them. Some look for a partner they can dominate and control, perhaps someone younger, less intelligent, or successful. Some choose a partner they can rescue from a bad situation, playing the savior role, another form of control. Yet others look for someone to fill the memory or to fill the mommy or daddy role. They want more pampering. Their choice. These choices are rarely intellectual. They reflect people's earliest years and attachment schemas. They are sometimes surprising, as when people select someone who seems very different and outwardly incompatible, but there is always an internal logic to choose to such choices. But there is always an internal logic to such choices. For instance, a person has a tremendous fear of being abandoned by the one they love, reflecting anxiety from infancy, and so they select a person who is noticeable inferior in look or intelligence, knowing that person will cling to them no matter what. Another domain to examine, realm, another realm and domain to examine, another domain to examine is how people behave in moment away from work. In a game or sport, they might reveal a competitive nature that they cannot turn off. They have a fear of being overtaken in anything. Even when they are driving, they must be ahead out in front. This can be channeled functionally into their work. But enough hours it revealed deep layer of insecurities. Look at how people lose in games. Can they do so graciously? Their body language will say a lot on that front. Do they try whatever they can to circumvent the rules or bend them? Are they looking to escape and relax from work, or to ascend or to assert themselves even in such moment? Are they looking to escape and relax from work, or to assert themselves in assert themselves even in such moment? In general, people can be divided into introvert and extrovert. Develop criteria. The Extroverts are largely governed by external criteria. The question that dominate them is what what do others think of me? They will tend to like what other people like, and the group they belong to frequently determine the opinion they hold. They are open to suggestion and new ideas, but only if they are popular in the culture or asserted by some authority they respect. Extrovert value external things: good clothes, great meals, concrete enjoyment, others. They are in search of they are in search of new and novel sensation and have a horse for trends. They are in search of new and novel sensation and have a and have a nose for trends. They are not only comfortable with with noise and bustle but actively search it out. If they are bold, they love physical adventure. If they are not so bold, they love creature comfort. In any event, they crave stimulation and attention from others. Introverts are more sensitive and easily exhausted by too much outward activity. They like to conserve their energy to spend time alone or with one or two close friends, as opposed to extroverts who are fascinated by fact and statistics for their own sake. Introverts are interested in their own opinion and feeling. They love to theorize and came up with their own idea. If they produce something, they do not like to promote it. They find the effort distasteful. What they make should sell itself. They like to keep a part of their life separate from other, to have secret. Their opinion do not come from what others think or from any other authority, but from their inner criteria, or at least they think so. The bigger the crowd, the more lost and lonely they feel. They can seem awkward and mistrustful and uncomfortable with attention. They also tend to be more pessimistic and worried than the average extrovert. Their boldness will be expressed by the novel idea they come up with and their creativity. You might notice tendencies in both directions, in individuals or yourself, but in general public tend in one or the other direction. It is important to gauge this in others for a simple reason: introverts and extroverts do not naturally understand each other. To the extrovert, the introvert has to fun, is stubborn, even antisocial. To the introvert, the extrovert is shallow, flighty, and overly concerned with what other people think. Being one or the other is generally something gigantic and will make two people see the same thing in a totally different light. Once you understand you are dealing with someone of the other variety than yourself, you must resist, reevaluate, reevaluate, resist, reevaluate. Reevaluate, research their character, and do not foist your own preferences on them. Also, sometimes introvert and extrovert can work well together, particularly if people have a mix of both qualities and they complement each other. But more often than not, they do not get along and are prone to constant misunderstanding. Keep in mind that there are generally more extrovert than introvert in the world. Finally, is it critical that you measure the relative strength of people character? Finally, is it critical that you measure the relative strength of people's character? Think of it in this way. Such strength come from within the core of the person. It could stem from a mixture of certain factors, Genetics, secure parenting, good mentor along the way, and constant improvement. See one season of this chapter. Whatever. Whatever the cause. Whatever the cause, this strength is not something displayed on the outside in the form of bluster or aggression, but manifests itself in over resilience and adaptability. Strong character has a tensile quality like a good piece of metal. It can give and bend, but still retains its overall shape and never break. The emanates strength emanates comes from a source. Emanates come from the strength emanates from a feeling of personal security and self-worth. Comes from a source from a feeling of personal security and self-worth. The strength emanates when it comes from a source from a feeling of personal security and self-worth. This allows such people to take criticism and learn from their experiences. This allows such people to take criticism and learn from their experiences. This means they do not give up so easily since they want to learn how to get better. They are rigorously persistent. People of strong character are open to new ideas and ways of doing things without compromising the basic principle they adhered to. In adversity they can retain their presence of mind. They can handle chaos and the unpredictable without succumbing, succumbing to anxiety. They keep their word. They have patience. Can organize a lot of material and complete what they start. Not continually insecure about their status, they can also subsume their personal interest to the good of the group. Their personal interest to the good of the group, knowing that what work best for the team will in the end make their life easier and better. People of weak character begin from the opposite position. They are easily overwhelmed by circumstances, making them hard to rely upon. They are slippery and evasive. Worst of all, they cannot be taught because learning from others implies criticism. This means you will continually hit a wall in dealing with them. They may appear to listen to your instruction, but they will simply revert to what they think is best. They may appear to listen to your instruction, but they will simply revert to what they think is best. We are all a mix of strong and weak qualities, but some people clearly veer in one or the other direction as much as you can. You want to work and associate with strong character and avoid weak ones. This has been the basis for almost all of Warren Buffett investment decisions. He looks beyond the numbers or to the CEO he will be dealing with and what he wants to go on. Above all else, in their resilience, their dependability, and their self-reliance. If only we used such measurement in those we hired, the partner we take in, and even the politician we choose. Although And intimate relationships, they are certainly other factors that will guide our choices. Strength of character should also be considered. This was largely what led Franklin Roosevelt to choose Eleanor as his wife. As a handsome young man of wealth, he could have chosen many other more beautiful young women, but he admired Eleanor's openness to new experiences and her remarkable determinations. Looking far into the future, he could see the value of her character mattering more than anything else, and it ended up being a very wise choice. And it ended up being a very wise choice. In gauging strength or weakness, look at how people handle stressful moment and responsibility. Responsible. Look at their parents. Moment in gauging strength or weakness, look at how people handle stressful. In gauging strength and weakness, look at how people handle in gauging. अच्छा gauging माने strength or weakness. Gauging माने measuring. Measuring strength or weakness. Look at how people handle stressful moment and stressful moment and responsibility. Look at their patterns, what they have actually competed or accomplished, what they have actually completed or accomplished. You can also test people. For instance, a good natured joke at their expenses can be quite revealing. Do they respond graciously to this? Goodwill. Graciously, goodwill to this. Not so easily caught up in their insecurities, or do their eye flash resentment or even anger to gauge their trustworthiness as a team player, give them strategic information or share with some rumor. Do they quickly pass along the information to others? Do they quickly pass along the information to others? Are they quick to take one of your ideas and package it as their own? Criticize them in a direct manner. Do they take this to heart and try to learn and improve? Or do they show over sign of resentment? Give them an open ended assignment with less direction than usual and monitor how they organize their thought and their time. Less direction than usual and monitor. Give them an open ended assignment with less direction than usual and monitor how they organize their thought and their time. Challenge them with a difficult assignment or some novel way of doing something and see how they respond. Now they handle their anxiety. Remember, weak character will neutralize all of the other possible good qualities a person might possess. For instance, remember, weak character will neutralize all the other possible good qualities a person might possess. For instance, people of high intelligence but weak character may come up with the good ideas and even do a job well, but but they will crumble. They will crumble, break. They will crumble means break under pressure, or they will not take too kindly to criticism, or they will think first and foremost of their own agenda, or their arrogance and annoying qualities will cause other around them to quit harming the general environment. There are hidden costs to working with them or hiring them. Someone less charming and intelligent but of strong character will prove more reliable and productive over the long run. People of real strength are as rare as gold, and if you find them, you should respond. You should respond as if you had discovered a treasure. You should respond as if people of real strength as are as real as a gold, and if you find them, you should respond as if you had a discovered as if you had a discovered a treasure. Although each person's character is a unique as a fingerprint, character is a unique as a fingerprint. We can notice thought, history, certain types of that keen recurring, and that can be particularly pernicious, harmful to deal with. Pernicious, harmful to deal with, as opposed to the more obviously evil or manipulative character that you can spot a mile away. This type of art trickery, trick, trickery, T-R-I-C-K-I-E, tricky, trickier, tricky. They often lure you in with an appearance that presents their weakness as something positive. They often lure you in with an they often lure you in with an appearance that presents their weakness as something positive. Only over time do you see the toxic nature beneath the appearance. Often when it is too late. Your best defensive defense is to be harmed with knowledge of this type. To notice this sign earlier on and not to get involved or to disengage from them as quickly as possible. The hyper perfectionist, you are lured into their circle by how hard they work. By how hard they work, how dedicated they are to making the best of whatever is they produce, how dedicated they are to making the best of whatever is they produce, how dedicated they are to making the best of whatever is they produce. They put in no longer hour than even the lowest employee.